This is an impromptu stream, and by that I mean I didn't really plan to do it. I just felt like streaming while I code today, so that's all there is to it. I don't know if I'll have any people watching, but that's not a problem. So there's only two more functions I have to implement to finish the multi-gap buffer, and that's replace range and batch edit step. So let's do replace range. If I finish replace range, then all of the normal sort of, not white space cleaning, but basically everything else can be done. Like I can edit with keystrokes, you know, and copy paste works, and not sure if undo works without the batch system. It might have like compilation dependencies that are too hard to untangle. But if I can insert text and copy and paste and cut, then this will basically be working. So, what does it take to, I haven't even thought about this at all, what does it take to edit text in a multi-gap buffer? Well, there's like a number of cases that are a little bit interesting that maybe I want to think about. I'm going to do a picture to think about it. So in the multi-gap buffer, you basically have one buffer that gets chunked up into multiple buffers. Each one has the same width, so every single buffer here is a little gap buffer. They're all they're all 8 kilobytes in my scheme, right? And you could just sort of slide that around and it's fine. I'm not sure why I deleted that. Can I undelete? Can I undo? Is there anything like that? Control Shift Z. I can leave that there, that's fine. So it looks something like this. And so far all I do is when I load in text, I figure out how many chunks I'm going to need, and I make sure that half of it goes on the left hand side and half of it goes on the right hand side of each chunk, and that half of the chunk is empty in the middle. So now when you do an edit, if the edit is completely contained, and again this is quite similar to a gap buffer in some ways, so like the concept of once you know that it's only happening in this mini gap buffer, then you just sort of apply gap buffer logic about whether it's all on this side, all on that side, or straddling. But then there's also the possibility here, well, there's a number of complications. For one thing, if I put some text in here, but the thing I put in is really big, then what I have to do is say, what's the new size of this going to be? And if the new size is going to go over the 8 kilobytes, I have to introduce one or more new gaps, or new mini buffers in this section, right? The other thing I have to deal with is what happens when an edit is so, like the range of an edit stretches from, well, there's the easy case where it just straddles the line of 2, which I guess you could say you treat that as an edit here and an edit here. And the one on the left, maybe you actually do the insert there, and the one on the right you just replace with nothing, right? So that just is getting replaced with nothing. It's getting deleted, that is. So that seems fine. And if I have to do like a big replace like that, then the same thing applies. Is it's just this one edit here, you actually put the text in there. So this chunk, you'd say delete the whole thing. This chunk, you'd say delete the whole thing. and this chunk you delete the portion floating in front. So the question there is like, how am I going to optimize that? Maybe because maybe I want to like leave these gaps available so that I can, if this is going to grow really big, fill them out. But it may be the easy thing to do is just remove them and then insert new ones afterwards, which would be a little bit of extra shifting nonsense, but that's what I would think I would have to do. Yeah, so I think that kind of gives me a good picture of what it is I need. So, let's take a look at that case where I need to break it up into a bunch of small edits and figure out how to do the breakup first. Don't care about you, I care about this one up here. So to replace inside one range, let's see, what is some of this stuff doing? So these here probably all apply. So I can continue to use those. I'm not sure if shift amount wants to apply directly or not, because it's more like I need to do the breakup into multiple edits first. So the first edit would be everything from the left-hand side of the edit, so the start, until the end of the first chunk, or until the end of the edit if it's contained within a chunk. And then every edit after that is just a replacement. So what I really will have is like a for loop, with to start that for loop, the local start will go to start, and we want to say while the local end does not equal the end we actually are looking for. So we can start by initializing that to 0. And then local end will have to equal we can say it equals the actual end, and then, well, one thing I'm going to have to do is know which small buffer I'm on, which I call a gap. And the first gap I'm on is going to be that one. And then after that, the question is if local end has gone past the end of this particular gap buffer gap thing. Then set this equal to this instead, and then the next question is well, what I should probably do is just compute shift amount, since that's sort of an output that I always want it to be correct. I'll call that shift amount out in this one. I may end up wanting another shift amount later is what I'm thinking there, that it's local, but I'm not sure yet. I'm pretty sure, we'll see. And then I have the start and the end that I want. The next thing to do is figure out if this is the first step or not, right? So this is always interesting when you want to have like a well, what I could do is just say after the first step, set len to 0. So we'll do one step, and then after that, length is set to 0 every time. And that way it's always empty after the first step. And the downside is that it sets that every frame of the loop, every iteration of the loop, but what I'd hope, it probably isn't true and I should look, but I'd hope that the compiler would just pull out one frame and put it up front and then set length to 0 and not duplicate that. That's what I would hope it would do. Because of course that would be the optimal way to write the code, but I don't want to duplicate the code inside the for loop. If, anyway, at that point we can figure out what we need to do to actually edit this one mini buffer. And to do that, will just be sort of like what we do over here for replacing a range. I suppose what I should do, it's so tough because the memory management's totally different in this one. As in, it's not one big chunk, it's more of a situation where I have to, whenever one of the little chunks is going to overflow, that's when I have to let it know that there's a problem. So I can't actually do the normal memory management if that I did with gaps, buffer, and the golden array. So what I'm thinking about is if I want to store this first edit and do it later after I've already gone through future edits. The rest of the edits are all going to just be deleting a chunk. And maybe what I want to do is just figure out, because what I could do is just say this is maybe a little, trying to be a little too general. And instead of this, I would say that I'll take the end gap. And the way that works is like this. This seems better. And and then you could do like a thing where well, the trick is the last gap will be a little tricky too. So the end gap and this gap are not straightforward, but everything in between those, you sort of get you get a situation like this. Right, so all of these guys in the middle, I can safely assume I'm just going to zero them out. And then when I do the edit where I do the insert text last, I will re-expand those buffers as needed, I guess. The only thing I don't know is like if I want to free buffers or what I want to do there, because I have basically an array of these mini buffers, and I think like you never free memory for the other one, so I'm not sure why I would want to start freeing memory for this one. But it's a potential thing you could do. Hello Miblo, thank you for modding. In case anything were to happen in the chat, it's hopefully not likely, but good you're here. I need to figure out what I'm going to do with these. Well, it would be something like take the mid gap. This is probably totally off, but I gotta get something started at this point, because I'm missing a key intuition on how to make this go. So basically all of these just need to be told that size 1 is 0 and that size 2 is 0. They just don't contain anything. I don't think that has anything to do with actually solving the problem, but that'll... So we'll say these don't contain anything, and then after that has happened, what we need to know is what is the new start position of the end gap. And should I shift everybody? Oh, that's what... Okay, right. So if I'm going to do this the slightly lazy way, what I want to do is say, do a mem move into the position gap plus 1 from the end gap with the amount of however many chunks I have minus the chunk index of end gap, I guess. So end gap... Wait a minute. Yeah, that's what I thought. That seems to make more sense anyway. And what happens if position is past the end of the whole buffer, right? If the multi-gap buffer contains 1,000 characters and I ask for position 1,000, does it give me one past the, does it give me chunk count? End equals chunk count. That will always be less. Or this, yeah, this position it'll continuously set start to M right up until the point where start plus end equals well, right up until the point where start is 1 minus the gap, but start is always less than end, and right here it says... Okay, so I'm just going to special case it. That is to say, if position equals the size of the buffer, then just set M to chunk count and call it a day. So it doesn't look like that loop is set up to do that. So that is making a little more sense to me now. You'll have to forgive me, I'm a little rusty on how this thing even works. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that because that's all bogus. What I actually, well, why did I do that? What I actually want is just gaps. And then below it I can get gap start, gap end, and gap. I don't even need that. Right, and then it's gap start, gap end, and then what I do is right here, buffer gap or chunk count. Ooh, that's a little annoying that I called it chunk. Oh well, gap end. Maybe I want to change those to gap now that I'm used to calling that way. And that actually needs to be multiplied by the size of one of these things. Okay. Of course I need to set that. Chrono Dragon, not right now. Right now I have, let me pull it up. Chrono Dragon's asking if my memmove for tech is different from memmove. And right now it's literally defined to that. That is set up that way so that I can change it. Because what I'm going to do is, first of all, someday in 4coder, 4coder right now relies on these three and assert, these four functions from the standard C library, which I'd love to remove someday. I just don't want to right now, because making it fast enough, it takes a little optimization. And since these are good enough and I'm not like too worried about like transitioning to not having them, seems fine. I just wanted the ones here in the buffer experiment to be a little different, because I'm going to actually, when it comes time to make the right now I'm linking to 4coder all of this code, but I'm going to build a separate like build unit. What's it called? Translation unit. I'm going to build a new CPP to be the translation unit for the experiment, which is also going to include all those files. And for that one, I'm going to define these differently so that I can count how much of this each of these things happens. Right. So I'll just sort of make my own function that I can insert there. So that's just mostly there so that I can insert whatever I want there. Right now, it's literally memmove. Alright, so that gives me the ability to move. So all the buffers that are being just fully deleted are gone. And the only problem is that the new buffers that start at gap +1, they don't know about they don't know about their new starting positions yet. It could be argued that that's okay because that's going to get figured out later. So basically right now the starting positions here just represent what happened before any shifts happened, right? Before the actual edit happened. All we've done so far is say that the buffers in between are no longer needed. The next thing we need to do is maybe apply the delete edit to the end buffer. So that one would be well, basically what I want to do here is if gap start is actually less than gap end, we're going to have to do this extra work. If it's all contained, none of this will happen and it'll be fine. Okay, so then if gap end is in fact larger than gap start, what we need is for local start and local end to get set in such a way that allows them to be properly edited. So local start will be 0. If I make these buffer local, I could try that first. Local end would be end minus gap +1 start position. And minus the start position of that, right? Okay, and then I want to do a pure delete just in that one function. I need to do okay, so what's going on here isn't too complicated. I'd love to have a new gap pointer which would let me think about this without confusing myself as much as I am right now, because this is obviously wrong when you look at it. When you look and read what it says, it's obviously wrong. Oops, gap +1. Okay. So we know that everything between is gone, and then what we want to do is say, alright, The gap I have is still the right one. I just need to use local start. Right, so local start is not really going to be useful. It's just a matter of deleting everything here. So it's like, look, does the size 1 happen to be greater than or equal to where this delete is happening? If so, then it's just a matter of saying, okay, then size 1 equals 0, right? That clears out all of that text is just deleted. For free, like, done. And then you have to say, is it greater than, well, that should maybe come later, actually, so that I can just keep using it. Is it greater than, it shouldn't be greater than the next number I'm going to say, but size 2, it should be less than that for sure. So it's more like, if we're definitely going to take out size 1, how much of size 2 do I want to take out? And the answer should be like, local end minus size 1. Right, duh, okay. So however much of local end is how much I'm deleting. If I subtract size 1, which we already have by this if guaranteed is completely getting deleted, I have what's left, and that has to be deleted from size 2, and luckily that is going to grow the right direction too. So if we're there, that's how we do it. If for here, so this one has to be done with mem moving some stuff. That's fine. Basically, we have to mem move everything from the data. Well, we're moving it to the beginning of data from that plus the local end, and the amount will be size 1 minus the local end. Okay. That, I believe, deletes what's on the end chunk that has a little bit deleted. And now, all that's left to do is to do the edit that ranges from, well, if I set gap to equal plus gap, that should be gaps. This should be gaps plus gap end. There we go. Yeah, I have a horrible tendency to write code that doesn't make any sense, and I just go with it. Yeah, it's crazy. Every time I read my code, I go, this doesn't make any sense. Alright, anyway. So, then I want to set the end to be exactly, well, I want to take gaps plus 1. Wait, no, that's not gaps, but that's not what I want. I want gaps plus gap start plus 1. This should be gap start plus 1. And then I want to take gap back 1, and I want to take I want to take the full size of this one, right? Because that's where it ends. So I actually want to delete in that range, I believe, is what I want to say. that the best way to handle it? And then I could say I don't really use local start in any of this. So now what I have is a situation where all I have to worry about is the actual text replace at hand in the gap buffer stored. Well, I haven't set gap up here. I think I want to add an else case here that says otherwise do, well, actually there's a better way to do that. I can just do you here, put you up there, and then gap equals gaps plus gap start. Right, okay. Cool. So now I have a pointer to the correct gap. This right here could actually just be plus plus on the gap now. This right here can actually be gap plus 1. Gaps plus gap end, size of gap times whatever's left. Looks good. Now what I should do is I should be responsible and update my chunk count in here when this happens. So when I do this, I'm losing a certain number of chunks. If, for example, this and this were equal, so that gap start plus 1 was exactly equal to gap end, I wouldn't be losing anything. So the new buffer count, or chunk count, is gap start, gap, okay, right, it's gap end. Wait, how many do I lose? I lose everything before gap end, everything after gap start, and then plus 1 because I don't actually lose gap start. Yeah. So that way, if this and this are adjacent, I lose 0, which is correct. If this and this are farther apart than that, I lose, like, if this is if there's a gap of 2 here, like it takes 2 to get to there, I lose 1, etc. Looks good. So now I know how many gaps, or how many chunks I actually have. Now I need to apply this edit to the first chunk. Let's see, the first chunk. Now there's no guarantee. Well, for one thing, this end is wrong because it might not actually go past that end there, right? So what I really want to say is, look at the end I have and ask if it goes greater than this amount. And if so, then you can do this set here, right? So limit this end to this sum of these two. Okay, and now the trick will be so now what we need to do is similar to what I do for a normal gap buffer. So let me pull that up real quick and see if that's of any help. Yeah, so to make it work, it's moving the gap to the right position first. If you don't do that, you just lose the whole advantage of there being a gap, really. It would just become a sort of extra addition to the work you have to do to maintain the gap. So what I really want to do is make sure I move the gap first like I normally would, and then do the edit like I normally would. So this is where it becomes quite a bit like this. So I'll introduce little braces so I know where that is. Basically everything between start and end, blah blah blah, it's all going to work out exactly the same way. So I'm going to just copy that into here, like so, and work out some of these kinks. So that should be a gap. That's size 1, size 1, size 1, gap size, gap, 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 gap. Data start. Now what I need to do is at the head end I should be initializing start and end to be local. So that's like gap start position, right? So that this code here assumes that the gap always start, or I should say this code on the left assumes that the gap buffer is at 0 at the base. Like the base of the buffer is always 0. But a gap doesn't have that assumption unless I do this subtraction, right? If I subtract this out, now it's like, okay, we're doing it from the relative position of the beginning of this gap buffer, this mini gap buffer, and then it should work out, as far as I can tell, to work out exactly the same way. Of course, that shift amount has to change, so I'll just pull that out. And some other things will have to change because the other one had the guarantee that it had enough memory before it ran. This one needs to check if it has enough memory and respond accordingly. So this is what it wants to do if the new edit will fit inside this gap buffer. So to do that, what I kind of want to have is like a shift amount that isn't the output shift amount, which is to kind of is for the interface to know how much it's actually been shifted by. For other purposes, this is just like a local version. So this is the shift amount after I make my changes to the end position and whatnot, right? That's how much we'll get. That's the shift amount to just the first buffer that's actually taking the change. And now we have to ask, hey, is this going to fit? And the way I do that is if the shift amount plus the gap's total size is less than or equal to the size of a fixed width gap buffer.
Cool.
Okay, so now everything inside that if is guaranteed that it can just do the text replay, it can just do the gap buffer style edit, and it'll work as long as I have this one extra addition of shifting start and end to the right position. End equals gap size 1, move size, everything there is changed. Shift amount and shift amount are good. Alright, cool. So now I think the question is, what is the else case? The else case is there's not enough memory in this buffer to take on the edit that it needs to take on. So we need to first request some new buffers, and then some new memory for buffers, and then we need to figure out what to do with it once we've got it. But the very first question will be, how much memory do we need? I think what I should do is total new size. Store that right here. Okay, so there's a total new size. So how many gap buffers do we need? And I can get a hint for that. Right here. So if I have a size, do I figure out how many buffers that's going to take to contain there we go. Alright, so this size right here is the total new size. I see some chat in the chat. I said chat twice because I set that up wrong. Okay, I see some discussion in the chat about the category of my streams and the legitimacy of my Twitch. And if there's anything I can do to categorize it correctly, be more legitimate, that would be fine with me. I don't know if I have to like set to not playing or what it is that I have to do to make it more correct. Let me know. I'm happy to do what I'm supposed to do for Twitch. But I can comment that I know that it's got they have a pretty broad definition. So what I'm doing, definitely, as Chrono Dragon has said, is allowed. I'm just not maybe correctly labeling the stream or something. And if that's true, I don't have any problem updating. Okay, so this is how many chunks it will take to store everything, and there's already one of them. We already have one chunk to store some of it, namely this chunk. Now, interestingly, what's actually happening here is this is already stored. It might be, well, we don't have any guarantee that I'm inserting. Yeah, I think the best thing to do will be to say grab some new chunks and we'll figure out how to redistribute the memory so that this will get separated and the new stuff will be plonked in between the others, because these two right here can this can stay as it is. The other one, this other chunk goes to the other end of the new buffers, and then the new text that I got goes in between as needed. Should work out. So this is how many new chunks I will need to store all of it. But what I'm thinking is maybe I just use shift amount actually. And the reason for that is these two I'm going to assume that I have one buffer to store enough. Like, well, I have enough to store this. So really it's this shift amount that I care about getting new storage for. And then I don't subtract one. That's probably more correct, because if I round it down, I could possibly get the wrong answer if I do it the way I was first setting up to do. Alright, so this is how many chunks I need. I think what I have to do now is introduce a concept of like the buffer. Well, basically I haven't really got a good way to do this because what I normally do is just I return how much memory I need, and then it gets provided via a function. I should go look at how that works real quick, because that might need some updating. So it's like a buffer replace range. Yeah, so what I was doing in the past was, where all do I use file grow as needed, I wonder? Two places. White, batch, shift amount, file, buffer replace range, okay, so that's the difference. Okay, so this is just assuming that it's going to need to get one piece of memory, but it's sort of not written to show that assumption. But I think maybe it needs to change, because in general what this does is, this is not a part of the buffer stuff. So file grow is needed gets called, and it just does an allocate and then a relocate call, where I pass in new data and then I return old data, and then that gets freed. And so this is, first of all, not maybe well named, because this one isn't so much a relocate as just a providing a new page of memory to be divided up. Or if I think about it in terms of a bunch of separate pages, it's even a little harder, which is how it's actually working in the initialization. So I kind of maybe want to follow that trend so that I can just assume that I can release each of the mini buffers separately when I'm done. So I need to switch real quick to the golden array and rethink relocate from the ground up. So this code here, the other thing I have to do is actually switch to compiling with this one. Okay, this code here says allocate new memory based on the requested size. And where did that requested size come from? Additional size. Grow as needed. So that's not even coming from the return. A buffer replace range just returns true if it needs new memory. So what I really want to do is I need to introduce a new concept of, like, okay, if this returns true, then that means it wants more memory. And to do that, well, the easiest thing would be if I had, in addition to shift amount, which is maybe not exactly the thing I want, a thing that goes request amount, right? And then I return through here that request amount. Now I don't need a new function for figuring out my request amount. I just have that, and then I can go, okay, once that has happened, where else does file grow? It doesn't show up anywhere else, does it? Because if it does, then I'm in trouble. But let's see, how many occurrences are there of this? Okay, just the two. Wait, I only see the one. Buffer replace range does not take 7 arguments. Oh geez. Okay, right. So let me go over to the golden array. Replace range. Request amount, like so. Result will just equal 1, but the request amount will equal that. Right, so now the request amount is what contains the amount we actually want to make. file grow is needed, I want to rewrite to request amount. That'll come in right here. So I don't actually need a pointer to it. Batch edit step says that it doesn't have the, oh, this is in, yeah, okay, so I need just a throwaway variable that I don't care about to pass in a pointer here. Right, now back to this. So I think what I want to change with this function is right now it passes in additional size. What I actually want to say is what is the new size. And then this target size here is just bogus. That's what new size is. And so if new size is greater than or equal to buffer max, no, that's not how you work. You'll just always do this now. So the request size is what you get when you take the new size, and you round it up to that's gigantic. I'm gonna maybe talk about making that smaller, and then allocate that. Make sure we got it. And then right here, it's not really a relocate as much as it's, well, the other thing is I don't even want to do grow as needed as a function anymore. I don't even want that to be a thing. So let me look at this and see what it's doing. This one is doing more of, it's looking at the total shift amount and saying that it wants to pre-allocate that memory. That's really just not going to work anymore if I'm going to keep this general. So what I actually want to do is say go to the thing I was looking at right here. Go to file view at the same time, and we don't need to calculate shift amount. What I'll do is I'll say make one of these, whoops, make one of these buffer batch state. Oh, come on. Step. Here's the state. Here's the buffer. Here's the batch. Here's the string. Here's the batch size. And here is the request size. And that we'll just do in the way where I update it every time that it wants me to. State, buffer, right there is pretty good. Okay. So get some new memory here. So this is where I sort of think that what I need is a concept that would be sort of a universal, like, edit, provide memory, which what I would give to the buffer, the data and the size of that data, and I'll just say that we're gonna give it the exact size it requests for now, and we'll, if we want to grow it, we'll do it on the inside. And so then the only question is to get that memory. There it is, general. Just making sure I actually have that. Request size, bubble, buffer. There is your data. You provide it. And then, let's see if I can remove these. Alright, what's going on here? Yeah, I'm sort of just trying to get rid of you, actually. So how about we get rid of you, and we look at where is file grow is needed happening. Yep, it's right there. So there we go. Result just equals 1, and I don't do anything with it. Okay, it's weird. And then I think we're just gonna do what I did over there and say that we always get the right amount. We probably won't even do any of this, maybe. Well, I probably want that, actually. Hard to say. No, I don't want it. Request amount. Buffer, oh, edit provide memory. Right, so that says, here's some memory you wanted. And then the next question is, how do I free everything? And this right here is one possible way that every time I provide something, I have an option to return something that I want freed. So whenever I'm like growing something, I can just return the thing I'm growing, and if I pass in something that isn't a growth, I'm just gonna return a null, and then nothing happens, right? But if that's the case, then the only thing I can't handle very super well is situations where I want to free something but not allocate something. And I guess if I want to do that, what I could do is set this to 0 initially, and then if request amount is greater than 0, I'll do this part, and then I'll get the old data in return. Yeah, so that seems pretty good. Alright, and of course, buffer edit provide memory doesn't actually exist, right? Request amount. Request amount. request amount. Now it's just this function, which I'm now trying to introduce. So that's like in golden array, that's kind of like this old relocate function, right? So this is now edit provide memory. Interesting. That's obviously totally messed up right now. I didn't notice it in the past. So is that. Actually, I knew that one was messed up. I just didn't feel like fixing it recently. But the paste color is kind of wonky if I can find another example of it. Yeah, it's totally just all over the place. Pasting wherever the hell it wants. With the paste color. Let me see something. Yeah, those are wrong. Okay. Anyway, the point of all this is to get it ready so that I can do a nice big operation in a minute that I want to test. Alright, so first of all, I've probably blown out the original size of the buffer. Oh, there it goes. Whenever I'm messing with how people get their memory, I like to try to break it to debug it. So that worked. So this is doing a single edit. The request amount is super big. We ask for some new data. It goes in to get this data, and it looks like, okay, so it's decided that the bubble it's looking at is a good one. It's not used. Right. And its size is, well, its size was probably correct, and then it just happened to fit right in after all these changes happened. It went in to do a split, went in to do the insert, and it found that previous next was a bit weird. Yeah, so the thing that interesting. So this bubble right here is the one that we're trying to allocate. We told it what size we wanted it to be. I made a new bubble by going to there. trying to insert that new bubble. And this is the one, is previous. Alright, so what I should do is probably put a breakpoint here and watch this happen, because I'm not seeing anything from just looking around in that code, as I usually don't see anything looking around in there, because it's probably not in the allocator. Oh shoot, I have to add in all my tabs in case, well, technically I don't need to do this, I guess, now that I think about it, because since my bug happens in the first stage of the experiment, I know that it doesn't have anything to do with, I know that the single edit itself is still broken, so it's fine to just ignore. Okay. It's fine to ignore the batch edit issue for now. I want to look at the Sentinel and see. I'm going to verify that everything is good looking right now. That's mighty unusual, actually. Makes me wonder if this hasn't been corrupted right here. But the pointers are still right. Like that. Previous there. This guy right here is 33B1 is this guy. If I look at his next, his previous is 33B1. His next and his previous match, that's correct. So I don't think he's corrupted. I'm not sure why he's so crazy looking. I mean, that's unused. Not totally clear to me, but it seems to be correct. I can't really say it's corrupted when the pointers are still right in the bubble. So that's fine. This is undo and history related memory. That's line starts, line wraps. Here's the actual buffer. I assume these down here are all unused. No, there's a buffer here that's being used. I only have one open. 1 in use, 3 in use. Oh, 1 not in use. Why would you be... Well, did it maybe go back and reallocate this chunk later? 208896. Yeah, so it looks like it... When did it get around to growing the text buffer without me noticing? Because this right here, the size... Oh wait, I'm confused. This is in use. So this is in use. Is it the other one that was not in use? Yeah, this one is not in use, but it's a text buffer. Seems kind of weird. But it's smaller, as if it allocated a bigger chunk and then a second bigger chunk, which I happen to be able to fit in the beginning. More undo and history stuff. A clipboard. 5. Ooh, what is 5? Can't remember what 5 means. Should really get around to finding a way to get the names in there rather than just the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tokens. Right, okay. So there's my tokens. I have another clipboard, and then it's back to the Sentinel. Okay, so everything looks fine right now. The memory is correctly set up. I haven't verified that literally every previous goes with its next, which wouldn't be too hard for me to verify manually for now. I could also drop in my memory check function in the future here if this becomes a difficult problem, but it really doesn't look like anything is particularly broken. And it might be that this isn't even the case where it's going to break, right? It could be that I go through all of this work and it doesn't break at all this time, and then it breaks in the future. Yes. Alright, 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 alright. So, I go in here, general memory allocate. I have to take that out someday. We start looking for some unused memory. That was unused but too small. Found something unused, but it's too small. Too small. Aha. Goldman 118 is asking what I major in, I think. He's asking me, I assume. And I major in computer science. I'm curious, what made you think I'm a student? I might have put it on a bio or something somewhere. But I'm majoring in computer science with specialization in software systems, meaning operating systems, compilers, etc. 216662. So then it says, okay, great, so here's my result. The result is the pointer you get when you go one pass there. Here is setting the flag of that. Here is setting the type to 1. Split the bubble. The remaining size is this much. Which is greater than the min size for sure. So it takes the size that it wanted, plugs it in right there for the size of this bubble, and says here's a new bubble which shouldn't overlap at all because it's way over here. And it's set to unused, sets the size, inserts a bubble. Yeah, that we didn't break this time, looks like. But let me see if anything else here doesn't make sense. So I then go and provide the memory, and to do that it says, alright, we're going to return the old buffer. We're going to copy from the old buffer into the new one this much memory. Then we set that data there. 208.216.62. Right, so that grew a little bit. I gotta make sure I'm doubling it from the inside. I return the old thing, then I want to see what happens when I try to free that, make sure everything there makes sense. it goes, okay, this bubble here is no longer used. Type goes to 0. Get the previous and next in that bubble. Attempt to merge both ways. So, when I attempt to merge with next, it goes, nope, that one's in use, can't do it. What about this one? Left is in use, so can't do it. It doesn't merge with anybody, and so bubble just sort of sits there without being used, but it's got all this stuff before it. Well, it's just right there. Okay, so that's unused. Makes sense. And yeah, that seems okay. Then it should continue on and be fine. Okay, let me keep going. I paste again, it runs again, it's fine. I paste again, it runs again, it's fine. I paste again, it runs again, it's fine. When does it break down, I wonder? There. Okay, it only took a few times for it to break down. It's tough. What I could do is say that I'm going to enable all of my debug memory view and then try this. Tokens right there keeps increasing in size. Buffer hasn't moved at all. There it goes. There it moved again. And again. There. We have a discontinuity right there. That's the first time that has ever popped up for me, and I'm finally it's paying off. So it definitely happened as a result of allocating stuff in the buffer. What I should do is set up a program, by that I mean a series of things that I do that recreates it so that I know I can count up to however many pastes I have to do to get it. So I'm going to copy exactly this big panel draw function and only the big panel draw function, and I'm going to figure out how many times I have to paste it. Copy. Now here we go. Paste. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that led to a different problem that just totally broke it, but we saw the discontinuity before it happened. It's possible that we're triggering the lexer and that's interacting poorly. I wonder if this would still be a problem. Well, for one thing, I saw some adjacent unused bubbles, which was weird. That shouldn't have been possible, I don't think. So I want to see why that's happening. So I'll just start by debugging that, because maybe that's related, and if not, I'll still be able to take a crack at that bug too. So I'll do the same thing again and count how many times to just get adjacent unused bubbles. Okay, so here we go. And if its lexer related, that's parallel, which means it might not even be easily recreatable while the lexer is running. And I might have to turn the lexer off. Anyway, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so there's actually a number of things going weird. Now that I look back at the buffer, the paste is all messed up. But there's also the question of why that didn't lead to a problem this time. Right, I did 10 paste, same 10 paste I did before, this time no problem. Like I said, could be about the parallel thing. But I suspect that this discontinuity is caused by, which by that I mean somewhere where the pointers don't point back and forth to each other correctly. This is caused by one of my resizes. So what I could do is just throw in a mem check. Let's see. Here it is. So this is just doing a loop across and seeing that everybody exists. This one over here says look at each one, figure out whether it's used, to figure out the color, that's fine. Make this, that's fine. Then it says look at the next. If the next is not the sentinel, and pointer. So it shows discontinuity basically any time that, right, that's kind of interesting. So bubble next equals next. If I was being pretty clever when I set up this debug stuff. Sentinel is not equal to sentinel, then take a look at the, I'll do that with chars now. Look at the end pointer and see if it's where it should be. Okay. So now my memory check's a little bit stronger. I can go over to file view where I suspect, at least, I don't know if anyone else suspects it, but I suspect that the replace range loop right here is leading to a problem. So after each one of these I'm going to do, well, I'm going to do a memory check after the allocate. I should do 3 memory checks. I should do a memory check here before we start. On general. I should do one here before the free, and here after the free. So right now, those memory checks aren't even triggering because we're not doing anything that might cause them to trigger. But as soon as the buffer memory starts moving around, we'll start triggering the memory checks, and as soon as one of them breaks, we'll know which operation it was that broke it, out of those several operations that are happening per memory. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nothing happened that time that went wrong. 9, 10. Oh, there it is. File do single edit. Yep, the memory check failed right in here. Looks like it failed after a memory free. We did a memory free and then we got a discontinuity. And that memory free, what do I know about the memory free? What's going on with the old data there? Can I see? Can I look into that? Is the data still? It's kind of broke. That's sad. I can't see it, which means I don't know for sure that it was actually this one, or well, it couldn't have been this one so much, could it? We did a memory check that said what? The end pointer is 1A, 3A, 7A. The next pointer is much less than that, 16CA, 6E. So the end pointer is too far from where it's pointing. After some memory free happened, somebody thought that their next pointer went to, you know, here is the bubble. He thought the next bubble was here, but he said his size went all the way out to here. So someone did something wrong. Maybe it was a merge that went wrong, because that would be a relatively rare event that maybe I just haven't caught yet, which would be unusual. But so it seems like I should have exercised that pretty heavily by some of the things I've done. But if not, just in case there is just a basic old bug in memory free, we will go take a look now. So we have a pointer who is trying to get freed. We get the bubble from that, which we do by just looking, yep, at the header before it. We set it to not be used. Set the type to 0. Grab previous and next. And then we attempt to merge. Now, if we merge with next first, what happens? Say we successfully merge with next. Attempt split, memory allocate, memory do merge, memory attempt merge. Do I do a do merge anywhere else in the code? Yep, right there. That's why it's separated. Okay. So I attempt a merge, which means I look and see if left and right are both unused, and if they are, I do a merge on left and right, which means left grows in size, and then, whoa, I didn't know my Steam was on. Guess I better just ignore it. I don't know. Can I like notifications or something? Oh, I just want to turn notifications off for now. Yeah, well, I'll just hope that that doesn't happen again. Okay, so memory free. I don't see why that would be wrong. It's making sure, and it does this one first, which is important, because if you do the other one first, then the bubble becomes invalid. memory size plus equals the right hand side, which was correct, plus the bubble. We remove the bubble. Does that work? Removing a bubble says take the bubble, connect previous is next to my next. Connect my next previous to my previous. Seems like that should work, right? Alright, so the only thing I can think is that it seems like after each merge, the whole thing should still be, the whole thing should still be, like, the check should still, whoops, yeah, that's, Mibla, I just more want them out so that I don't get distracted. Mibla's saying that my stream notifications aren't showing up because my head's obscuring them, but I don't want to be distracted. Bad fly dog. The linked list has a sentinel. If any of the pointers are null, there's already an error. They should always point to something, right? There's like no such thing as a null pointer in previous or next, while everything is valid. So if I were to text that, that would just be testing. That would just be testing for another error. Like once it's null, an error has already happened. So that isn't like what's actually happening that could be causing anything. Let me just drop this in somewhere useful. I mean, I could test for it, but I don't think that's what's happening, because if it was, we'd be breaking there instead of where we're breaking. And that's not generally the error I get. I normally get either memory corruption or like little fidgety bubbles. Or little fidgety pointers with the bubbles. So I want to do memory checks between each of these. Because if I am not terribly mistaken, after each of the merges it should be valid. Got another one. Another one of those notifications. I also have my OBS volume all the way off, like for my speakers, so you wouldn't be able to hear them either. So as long as I don't get distracted, it should be fine. Alright, so I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to grab that, copy that big function. If you're watching and you want to see the in-editor compiler before I'm done, make sure to remind me when I start winding down and finishing up. Make sure I get a reminder in case anyone is looking to see that in action. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There, it broke. It broke after the first attempted merge. So now, what I'd like to do is say, okay, maybe my merge has never occurred like I said before, and maybe I just never stressed it hard enough to cause a merge up until now, which seems unusual, but it's possible, I guess. And let me take a look at bubble and then next. Okay, and I'm going to take a look at bubble size, right? And the question is, what if I took these as raw pointers and I took their difference? Okay. So that makes sense still, because the difference from the distance from there to there should be less than the size of this after the merge, but what's the size of the next, whoops, not next bubble, next size, please. What's the size of the next bubble? Okay, 23,658 plus 22,560. Whoops, missed a 4 here. Alright, so those make sense. So I wonder where the discontinuity happens. Maybe it's like a matter of, if I go to this guy's next, here's his size. What is his current next? 16CA6E. Okay, so bubble next and next. Okay, so this bubble doesn't actually have a new correct next pointer. Its next pointer should have been updated, but it doesn't look like it was. That's pretty interesting. So let me look at attempted merge again. Do merge remove bubble. So the problem's almost certainly in remove bubble. I may have a silly error in remove bubble. So which bubble am I removing? First of all, let me go through all of this, make sure it makes sense. So doing a merge, I increase the size of left, and then I try to remove the right bubble. Yes, we concluded that the size is correct. Then we came over here to remove the bubble completely, and we went to our previous is next, and this doesn't seem to have actually happened, right? This is where it gets weird, because this should have changed this guy's next to no longer point here. And yet it still does. It still thinks of that as its next. Strangely, his previous and next, well, his previous has gone to garbage. I'm not sure why that is. And his next has a previous that went to garbage as well. His next is himself? Yeah. Okay, there's a bug in remove bubbles, so I'm gonna say let's just try to stop there. I'll bet you it doesn't stop until the... Okay, what's that? That shouldn't have happened, right? System free memory. Oh, right, that's a different one. System free memory bubbles work differently. Those are system level bubbles. They don't have the same problems with working with others. Whoop, okay. We're still doing a system free, that's fine. Basic, still doing a system free. I hope that was still a system free, because I didn't actually look now that I think about it, but this is a general memory free. But this is gonna work. Right, that's gonna work. So yeah, reallocate. Does the merge bubble in next? And then it splits off a remainder of that bubble after the merge. Bubble next. Yeah, that just works. These all just work. Those are system freeze, system free, system free, system free, system free. Wow, okay. Now, we've gotten past all of the setup merges which appear to work. I'm wondering maybe now if merge is fine, and it's more like some sort of discontinuity that I'm not checking for yet, like where the next pointer points to yourself somehow. Maybe that's happening, and then one system free, system free, system free, reallocate. Yeah, so this doesn't seem particularly productive because a lot of things are doing remove bubbles. It's most likely the attempt merge portion of this that's messed up somehow, but it could be messed up for some other reason still, I think. So yeah, I'm gonna improve my memory check real quick. Memory check. So another thing I want to check is, let's see, assert that bubble next does not equal bubble. That we're never okay, alright, so if next is not sentinel, we'll do this stuff, right? So if next is sentinel, rules are different, but otherwise assert that bubble next is strictly greater than myself. That's technically only true as long as the whole allocator stays in one page, but for now it is, so that'll help me debug. While I'm at it, I can put in the mirror, which is that bubble should be, while next is not sentinel, bubble should be greater than the previous. Actually, that would be true even if the next one was the sentinel. Whoops. It's not what I wanted. I don't know if anyone saw that, but if you did, you got an early glimpse of what I was talking about. One, two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Try break. Interesting. So the new checks haven't caught anything, which means it was totally accurate before this check happened, and then it totally broke down after that. So what I'll do is I'll put in a breakpoint right there. All the other breakpoints have gotten old by now, so I'll take them out. And when the time comes to look at that, I will. Okay, there we go. Copy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Put the breakpoint on, and 11. Alright, 1 second. I have to go to the bathroom. Alright, back to it. So, I just triggered this. We still don't have any problems with the memory, right? So I can like even walk through it real quick. Keep an eye on the bubble the whole time, right? Looking good. The next is larger and everything like it should be. Good, good, good. And it's always lining up with its size, etc. Right? So now if I come down here, skip to there, something goes wrong during this attempt merge. So, I'm going to look into it. Alright, so what do we have here? What are left and right all about? Left and right. Let me step forward one to get the correct values, first of all. So they're that big and that big. That's fine. They're both unused, so it's going to do the merge, as I suspected. And they're... okay, their type gets set to 0 when they get cleared. Okay. So it's going to do the merge. Let's move into the actual merge code. So left and right again. We're merging right bubble into the left bubble, basically. It looks at their sizes and says increase the left size as needed. So that's the correct amount. And then it goes, let's see, just heard people coming in, so I want to lock the door so that I do not get interrupted. It's going to do the remove on the right bubble, and his previous and next are still good, right? No, not really. His previous is pretty weird. So is his, actually. Their previous are both pretty messed up. Not sure how that happened. I missed it. What happened? Right, because his next should be this, which is which is true. And and when it goes to do the remove right, it's going to take this bubble here, which should be left but is not, and do stuff with it. Alright, so when we go to do a do merge, I need to like assert that left and right point to each other, because there's something going on there that's weird. Alright, so let me take out this and do the 11 pastes as usual. Open test basic. Panel draw, copy this stuff here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and this is the one that should break it. I put in the breakpoints. 11. So it passes the first memory check. It goes into attempt the merge. Left and right are both unused. So it does the merge. Now, what's going on with left and right in the previous and next status? it's all like totally absurd, right? His next was correct, but his previous is not. Okay, I want to watch that all again. I feel like I'm still missing the moment when something goes crazy, because if it's passing the check, it shouldn't be able to pass if those next and previous pointers are that messed up. The memory check. Memory check should fail. So when am I changing previous and next? It's really weird. It's like I have a pointer that's not lined up right, and I add something to something, and then it messes up. But I'm not sure yet. Okay. Plus, it's only the nexts that are right. The previous's are messed up. So I could be messing up the previous's by corrupting them, and then the memory check is failing to catch it because the previous's aren't really carefully checked. Maybe? But they are now. Like, I'm checking that it's less than the pointer. I could do more to check the previous's. I should check that next previous equals me in every iteration, probably. That would be smart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, shoot, I didn't wait. Alright, so let me go make that change to general memory check, though, because that's probably going to help a lot. With each step, check that bubble equals next previous. Okay. Let's see if we catch an error sooner now. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, shoot. That came way sooner. Where did we catch that? That was at the beginning of trying to do the free. So yeah, it's possible that this is actually just memory corruption, and that I'm writing 4 bytes past where I'm supposed to, or even just 1 byte past where I'm supposed to. Interesting. Memory reallocate. Memory no cop. So that's actually happening during a memory reallocate that I get the interesting. That's during a Lex job, which is kind of scary since that's parallel. I did properly lock all of my memory operations. Memory reallocate no copy. Large roundup. Copy amount equals. Right, so it does the grow thread memory here, which is asynchronous, and that's fine. And then it's just right here where it takes a frame lock to grow the token stack. And the reallocate no copy. Just goes to general memory reallocate, which says what's the additional well, old size 0 size 47. Okay, So then it looks and says, what's the additional space we need? The bubble size, subtracting out from the size we want, 475136 minus, right, so we want this much more. And then it goes, can we do that without moving? And it came to the conclusion it couldn't, so it does a new allocate. Does a mem copy and a free. There's no reason why that would be busted, is there? Old size is 0, so it doesn't even do that. Alright, so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to just spam the mem check into everything for a little bit, because I'm not convinced that there's actually anything in that code I was just looking at that was broken. I'm guessing it was somewhere before that. So, allocate. We'll do a mem check here, and I can finally get rid of this crap. After the split, everything should be valid. At the beginning of a reallocate, it should be valid. After doing a merge, after doing a split, after doing an allocate, after doing a free. Okay. So now we're mem checking everywhere, which is really, really, really gonna slow stuff down, but it's also going to catch the bug as soon as possible, hopefully. Which may be even sooner. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Bubble equals next previous. Where did that fail? Reallocate. Alright, so it failed right when it went to do the reallocate here. Job full X. That is really annoying, because if that's where it's failing, and exactly the correct point where it failed was bubble equals next previous. Somebody has invalid previous pointer, but it's not entirely clear why. Who is this bubble? What do they contain? This is a text buffer, pretty far away from the sentinel. The next chain is still valid. I've never understood why it does this. Looks like I have an extra empty bubble there. I have to figure out why I did that. But anyway, oh wait, okay, so this right here is the sentinel. So I can step forward through the next to the sentinel. But the problem is the previous is just bogus for the next bubble, right? If I look at the previous there, it's bogus. And that should be, well, who should that be? Next. It should be whatever bubble is, right? That previous there is null, right? No, so his previous is the messed up one. So my next previous is pointing somewhere in the middle of an empty buffer. where it should have been pointing at me, and the difference is by one bubble. I think B2 might be the size of a bubble header. So let me take 170600. And then let me add in. Oh, come on, what's this? What is this? Actually, better idea while that was spazzing out. B2, size of bubble. No, okay, so that's more than a bubble header. This bubble has a size of that, so it's got way more than that. He has no business pointing back. Well, who's my previous? My previous is way less than that too. It is not clear to me why that should be possible. What am I missing? There's a reallocate that I'm checking thoroughly. The beginning and the end of is checked. There's a free, which is checked beginning to end. There's an allocate, which is checked beginning to end. Yeah. The rest of these aren't even allowed to be called externally. So if it's a bug with the memory code, I would think I would have found it by now. But I'm not finding it until the Lexer goes to increase the size of the memory, which makes it really hard for me to pin down who in the main thread is actually causing it. So I'm going to go turn off lexing for now. Oops. Lex as CPP file. Okay, so Lexer's off. Let's see what happens now. Maybe the Lexer's causing the issue, but it doesn't seem likely to me. It seems like it's caused somewhere else. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. So now it's still not being caught until after it happens, but it's... Let's see, the first thing that happens is view replace range, file do single edit. Right, so it's failing this general memory check right here. What I could do now is take my frame function and spam the general memory check. Is it nowhere in this? Wow. Okay. I'm gonna just spam general memory check throughout this function. I'll have to do something fancy to remove all of these at this point. Something in here is causing the corruption, and the sooner I find it, the sooner I can narrow in on it and figure out which one it is. So I'm going to just start by going section by section, and the assumption will be the first the section above wherever it's caused is the one that is causing it, basically. So I can get it down to a pretty small portion of the code right away. What was that? That was weird. Copy. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Who was it? General memory. Okay, somewhere between here and there, huh? SolidWing68 asks, I want to learn more about programming and how APIs work. Where is a good place to start for that? I'm not sure exactly what you're asking. I mean, do you already know some programming and you want to learn how to make good APIs, or do you want to learn the basics of programming, or what are you asking for exactly? Let me find the paste command. Let's see if it's happening in here. View, post, paste, effect, current view to file view, blah, 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 blah. Okay. 497. Nope, don't open the file. Go to 497. Check mem general before and after I replace range. I suspect that that's where the problem lies, so hopefully that will detect it. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Where did we break? Alright, it is there. Right, okay. So that makes some sense. It's in view replace range that everything went wrong. So I'm going to put a breakpoint right here at this point, and I'm going to step into there on my 8th paste, since this has become pretty recreatable. Panel draw. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Put my breakpoint in. 8. Okay, it's about to step into the replace range function. So we're about to do the single edit. Everything begins just fine. Goes in to replace the range. I bet it says it needs more memory at this point, right? So it goes, okay. The shift amount is going to be 13,356 characters. If I add that there, I don't have enough memory, right? Right. So the request amount becomes 209,840. Okay. So 209,840 is greater than 0. We do the request. To allocate. Everything still checks out fine here. We get the new bubble eventually. Have to iterate over a bunch of used bubbles and a few unused bubbles that are too small. Then we finally get there. We got it. We get out. Check still passes. We do the free. The check still passes. We do the actual replace now. And here we're about to do a mem move, which might be the problem. 109,478 plus all that. The buffer size is that big, but the max is that big. So let me take a look at those numbers and see if we have room for that. So there's the max. I'm going to move into the position called end plus shift amount, some memory. The size of that memory is going to be size minus end. If I add those together, do I get something that is good? 122,834 plus 87006. That's just going to fit inside the max. Okay, so if that just barely fits inside the max, data plus start string length. Hey guys, I see a couple new people asking what I'm up to. Actually 3 people. Welcome. I'm working on a project called 4coder. Miblo, just so you know, my name is spelled with an E like so. And yeah, that link gets you to a lot of it. Also, let me show you another thing. What I'm working on right now isn't on GitHub, but some of the work I'm doing for a buffer experiment that I'm working on is here on GitHub. So there's this here, and you can go and look at the code and do whatever you want with this code, other than you know, license it so that other people can't use it. That's the only thing you can't do with it. So yeah, that's good to check out. I'm working on how to best handle buffers in my particular code editor, but I have some sort of crazy memory problem right now. That doesn't make a total lot of sense, but I have a small suspicion about what's been causing it the whole time. I haven't quite figured out why my suspicion should actually be causing it yet. And so far the numbers over here work out that I'm getting back into the debugging now. The numbers over here work out that this shouldn't be an issue. I do the mem move, and now what I would like to do is go and see, because what's actually going to happen is this code here, I failed to do a mem check after the loop, so it's possible that the replace range function itself causes the problem once it doesn't return true. So now that I've done that mem move, let me actually test the general memory now. General Sentinel. Okay, Now I'm going to walk through and make sure that everything makes sense. Next. I should go through by previous, actually. Previous, because that's where the problem has been showing up. Previous, and it would make sense if I was doing 1 byte more than I should for some reason, right? If I was copying 1 byte more than I should, and I look at what I was getting before, I was having zeros where there should have been a B2, which means I might have been pasting a 0 over the correct location, right? So I'm going to just take a look and see if that's it, because it seems like at some point I have off by 1, and I put a 0 in a place where there shouldn't be a 0. It seems like that happens at some point. Now it could be that somewhere along the way the code assumes that it can null terminate the buffer even though it can't, and that wasn't here. And it looks like I've gotten back to the Sentinel, so yeah, it's not here that the problem happens. Vape1c asks, is there a GUI? Oh, what do you mean? Like in the editor? Like for what purpose? There's a GUI for selecting color themes, but there's like it's a text editor, so it's got like text. The GUI is not totally strong yet in terms of like the code editing level. And it's not like got menus and stuff crazy like this. It's more in the Emacs Vim sort of minimal editor style where, you know, it looks more like this. Well, let me finish this. Oh, right there, it's doing the null termination. That right there, I bet you if I was just talking about the null termination problem, and I bet if I go over it again, I will find that I've just put a 0 over the low byte of a pointer that has made it invalid. General Sentinel previous. Yep, there it is. Okay, so that's it. It was that. Okay, let me go to the golden array. So what I suspected the problem was the whole time was I've always allocated more memory than what I need. And well, I didn't suspect this the whole time, but I suspected it for a while, and I kept going back to it. I usually allocate more memory than I need, and this right here, right now, the system I'm testing was allocating exactly enough memory. And I thought that that was probably the reason that we were getting something weird, but I couldn't figure out why that would be, because everything I looked at said that the memory should be fitting just right in every possible place. Well, the problem is I have this right here from when I used to ensure that the size was always less than the max, so I could null terminate. So I'm going to just do a quick look around to make sure that nowhere else I have null terminations on the buffer, because that's an error. Let me see if I get any more if I run it now. Because that's sort of just like an old vestigial piece of the system that isn't really in use anymore. I can turn off my breakpoint and we'll see if I can paste indefinitely now. Panel draw. Copy, paste, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yep, okay. Problem solved. All of that, people, was caused by one extraneous null termination. That is what we had today. Alright, now I'm going to have to take all those mem checks out. So to do that, what I want to do is change the name for a moment so that I can get my list of errors, since that's the fastest way to get a list. And then remove them all. Okay. Now let me go and set memcheck back to its original name. Check. Okay. And now let's give it a run. I should add the tokens back in while I'm at it, actually, so let me do that. Whew. And I here was trying to get editing in the multi-gap buffer to happen, and that didn't happen. Alright, there we go. Tokens should be back. What else? What else? I need, let's see. Well, I think the goal, okay, yeah, I'll test it with, tokens. Oops. There we go. Let me get, right, so what my original plan was to do was, yeah, Miblo, you heard me wrong. I said in editor compiler. I'll show you that, though, soon. I'm not done making sure that this actually works. I have to go back to this plan. Alright, copy, paste, 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 paste. Now that I can spam paste on single edit, hopefully I don't have a null Terminator sitting around anywhere else. We seem to be doing okay. Okay. So buffer is like just absurdly big now. And I gotta make sure it's asking for more because it's reallocating every single time since it's asking for precisely the right amount of memory. Now I'm gonna do a batch edit to clear all of my tabs and turn them into spaces. So here we go, Control Shift tilde. So some problems there, obviously, but no memory problems. But some problems. Well, I think I'm gonna say that I need to look at this because I knew there was a second problem at some point that was going on. So I want to revisit how I adjust those tokens while I'm fixing random bugs. Clean white space. No, do white batch. That's the one I want. White batch edit. There it is. And when that happens, how do I fix the tokens? Right. I say if tokens complete. Right. Okay. Then all we need to do is loop across the all of the tokens. Right, and say, okay, for each one. Now what this is ignoring is that there could be a token that completely contains some of the white space that gets edited. Specifically, that could include comments and strings. So what I need to have is a thing that says, look, if the edit start is less than this, and the token is less than the end token, this just takes the token and shifts it. But what we actually want to do is say if the token what I should do is say we'll have one loop like this that says, okay, if token is less than start, but edit start is less than token start plus token size, then Interesting. That's fine with me, I guess. There we go. Okay. Then I want to not edit the token start at all, but what I want to do is say take out from the size the basically the shift amount of this particular edit, which I'm going to compute down here later. So like local shift equals 0 with each one of these. Local shift equals all of this. Local shift. Right. So if yep. I'm not sure if that's the bug we saw just now, but that was definitely a bug that I've had floating around. So at least that's fixed. And then we'll go see if that happened to be the bug that we were looking at for the other thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let me just try it with this and see if it works. Control Shift, boom. That didn't work at all. I didn't even replace the white space. That's totally screwed up. Basic. Control Shift, boom. Yeah, it's not even doing the edit it's supposed to do. Okay. So, what caused that, I wonder? It seems to be off by some characters, like the shift amount's not getting applied properly. Was that the change I just made somehow? I don't see how it could be. I could just take it back out like this. Now we can take a look. Control Shift tilde. Yeah, so some reason the white space clean isn't working, so I'm going to take a look and see if I've messed up the batch edit in any particular way now. So that's right here. I'll just put down 2470 2566 right here that we're doing a batch edit. Okay. Control Shift tilde. Okay, so we're about to do a batch edit. We go in to begin the batch edit, and it says, or the batch edit step. Oh, you know what? I didn't clear my state to 0. That would do it. That right there could totally do it. Might not be the only thing that does it, but it could do it. There we go. Okay. So that's fine. We're back to good. Just got to make sure you clear your members to 0. Undo. I can ignore that and redo, undo, okay, so that works. It's good. Now, do the tokens work is the next question. And to find out, I have to set up this again. Well, as long as I'm toggling it on and off, leave that on for a minute. But I gotta run it and say open basic up, and I need to set up a situation where it wants to do word, right? But I want it set up the other way around as well. So boom, boom. Yeah, it seems to be pretty good now. What I have to actually do is take this one though and paste it right here and then tab it. Yeah, seems like it works now. So that other fix I did works as well. We're good, we're good. Okay, so everything's back to working for the golden array. So I have to get the gap buffer working. Oh, and if you didn't know, this is a super long stream. I've been going for 2.5 hours already. Once I get the gap buffer back to working, I'm going to call it, so there won't be too much of getting multi-gap buffer editing done, but I'll probably stream tomorrow so that I can keep working on that on stream. Okay. So to test that the gap buffer works now, I gotta switch to compiling with that, and there we go. So yes, everything has kind of changed a little bit. Let me go find my gap buffer function. Edit step now has to take in the request amount, and that has to get passed into the replace range, which now has to return replace amount like so, or request amount, and that goes right here. Okay, so that is looking a little more correct. That is looking even more correct. Now I just need to rename my relocate function for gap buffer. Relocate is now called edit provide memory. Now edit provide memory needs to make sure that it has the right number of arguments and all that. So here's the buffer, here's the new data, here's the new edit provide memory. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? Oh, it doesn't take a char star anymore, it takes void star, and it's up to me to cast it around. New data char star. Let's see if the gap buffer works again. White space clean. Undo, redo, undo, redo, undo, redo, undo, redo, undo, redo. Yes. History. Yes. Spam copy paste. Alright, so that's all working. And then I want to make sure I go back. I said I would do this, so now that I've got it working, request amount. When it requests a new amount, it should know to take that amount and at least double it. I might tell it to go to the wanted minimum page size, but I think that just doubling it for now, I'll have to think about if I want to do that. Yeah, I think so. I think I want to do it. Okay. So I want to do that, and then I want to have like a large or a round up function that takes that and the 4 kilobytes number, and I want to do the same thing in golden array. Request. Yes. Now we just need to make large round or round up. If in def round up for tech. Round up for tech, which goes, let me go look at my meta real quick. Large round up. I'll take a LRE round up underscore X, and I'll grab a copy of that and drop it in here. L round up. Alright, gotta switch these to this system. Int. Okay. Original X equals X. X divided by granularity. X times granularity if X is less than original X. X plus equals granularity. Yeah, that's a pretty good way to do it. I can't argue with my logic on this one, guys. This seems like a fine way to write large round up. So I'll keep that. There we go. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Ooh. Ooh. Oh, right. I'm a little bit challenged by, counting how many parameters there are in a function. It's difficult. There we go. And now, if I'm watching the memory, it shouldn't be as absurd when I start doing something like go down to the panel draw function, copy it, and once I start pasting it, buffer will eventually grow, and now buffer is not growing every time, right? I doubled it, and now it should double again sooner or later there, and now it won't go for a while, etc. So yeah, looks like I got everything back to a working state, and I've now defined this nice, the whole point of that, if you can't remember where this whole crazy adventure started, was to make this nice interface where when I replace range, it can request for more memory, and then I can provide that memory, and while I'm providing it, it can return old memory that it wants deleted. I wanted to get that interface working, and by implementing it for the golden array, I caused a stupid bug that I could have fixed much more quickly if I had just read through some code, but I just didn't know where to read, and I don't know, it didn't hit me the right way. So eventually fixed that crazy little corruption bug of 1 byte, and then everything was working. Went and got everybody else switched to the system, so now this interface works, but the original goal had been to get the multi-gap buffer editing working, and I was saying that it's a little bit tricky to figure out how I'm going to do memory requests, and now that I have the interface for memory requests, I can actually start to reason about that a little better than what I was able to before, which is now I've got request amount, and every time I need more memory, I'll just put in right there that I need more memory. And then all it's a matter of doing is saying every time I need to have more buffers than what I have, I will just start throwing out requests that say, hey, I need a new buffer. And so I can make all these mini buffers. And then I'll just never free them, so I'll keep them around somehow. Have to actually work on that next time as well. But thank you for coming out. Now, as promised, in-editor compiling is still going to happen. So let me show you what that's all about. Alright. So the basic idea is I haven't really finished it. I just wanted to, I was looking for something fun to do. So I have this nice little function, this nice little command called build, which right now calls a batch file I made called build all test, which is quite similar to what happens when I press my build button in Emacs. But the only difference is it doesn't write out to 4coder or 4ed.exe, because I'm going to be running 4ed.exe, and it'll just say it can't open the output file because it's, can't link because it's unable to open the file, right? For writing. So what happens is you run this and it runs the script. Now obviously what you really want the ability to do is control the script that you run and the directory that it's in, and that can all be done through parameterized commands. And there's some other things I got to think about, like, well, right now it's just creating a normal file, but I want to kind of make something special that's like read-only, and you can navigate and copy out of it, but you can't really write to it. I want to make it so you can do annotation on it, which I don't want to talk about yet because I still have to experiment with how that actually plays out, like what features I do and don't want to include in that, and blah 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 blah. But I thought I would, for a little bit of fun, get this thing started. So here it is. I can run that, and it'll run that batch file. So here we go. I already have an instance running actually. Alt-M, and you see it just built my whole program. For proof, I have it in the right spot. 4ed copy. I'll delete 4ed copy.exe real quick. Look at it again. No 4ed copy. Let me kill this buffer that got created and run it again. And now if I dir, 4ed copy was built again, right? So it runs the batch, all the files that it creates and stuff happen, and the output gets piped into 4coder. So pretty much like what Emacs does so far, except that this is just your ordinary buffer that you can like do whatever you want with. Whoa, that was kind of weird. Yeah, the mark is not being handled properly. I'll have to look into that. But the other cool thing is you can like undo the things that came in because they're just posted in as edits. But like undo and redo will be disabled on these eventually, and then I'll add some other fun stuff that I have an idea for. So this will start to evolve away from just being another file and towards being the command line interface. As you see, this is called a CLI process right now, and that will be basically a name that you can have several of, and you can like say I want to have a couple of them running, and there'll be a view kind of like what I have right here with these little boxes, but it'll be smarter because this is my debug stuff, so it's just set up to be ugly. But these represent running threads. Well, you'll have sort of the ability to like view a bunch of which processes you have running, and you can do all sorts of fun stuff that I'm going to work on in the future. That's coming. So that was my little sneak peek at the in-editor compiling. Thanks for coming out to see the stream, guys. Thanks for bearing with me, Miblo, and anyone else who bared with it. And I'll see you guys around. I'll hang out in the chat a little bit to answer questions if anyone's got